Over the dark Pacific, a Navy jet crew saw something that did not behave like any aircraft they knew. It hovered, shifted, and seemed to answer their attention as if the sky itself was watching back. The reports came from the training ranges off the Southern California coast, where military pilots spend long hours over open water. It is a place built for routine, which makes the unusual stand out even more sharply. This case belongs to a larger wave of UAP encounters involving Navy aviators, radar operators, and official review. Roosevelt is not a single isolated story, but part of a pattern that keeps resurfacing in modern military skies. In the summer of 2015, pilots from the Carrier Air Wing were flying familiar routes when they noticed an object that did not fit the traffic around them. The first impression was simple. This was not supposed to be there. What made the encounter linger was not just the sighting itself, but the way it unfolded in sequence. The object appeared, held position, and then moved with a kind of controlled ease that invited closer scrutiny. The pilots described a white oval or tic-tac-shaped craft with no visible wings, rotors, or exhaust. Against the blue sky, it looked almost too smooth to be a machine built for ordinary flight. Then came the motion that turned curiosity into alarm. Witnesses reported rapid acceleration, abrupt changes in direction, and a speed that seemed to erase the distance between one point and the next. Later, attention shifted to the instruments. Radar operators and associated systems reportedly tracked unusual returns, reinforcing the feeling that this was not a visual mistake seen by one tired pilot alone. That combination matters. Eyes in the cockpit, data on the scope, and a shared sense that the object was behaving intelligently. When those layers line up, the question becomes harder to dismiss. Supporters of the extraordinary interpretation point to the object's apparent control. It did not drift like debris, and it did not present the familiar profile of a drone, balloon, or conventional aircraft. The pilots also described a close approach that felt deliberate, almost interactive. In their telling, the object seemed aware of the aircraft nearby, which is precisely what makes the encounter so unsettling. There is a crucial detail in the way these reports were remembered. The object was not framed as a distant light in the sky, but as a solid presence occupying space. That distinction changes everything. Once the encounter entered the official conversation, investigators had to decide what could be verified and what remained testimony. The case became less about a single sighting and more about the reliability of the chain around it. That is where the Roosevelt reports begin to widen into a larger mystery. If trained aviators operating in a controlled military environment could not quickly classify what they saw, what exactly was moving through that airspace? Some accounts suggest the object's behavior changed when it was observed, as though the encounter itself mattered. That kind of responsiveness is rare in ordinary aviation stories and impossible to forget once described. The strongest believer case rests on convergence, multiple witnesses, unusual motion, and supporting sensor reports that were serious enough to be discussed beyond the cockpit. Together, they form a record that still resists easy closure. Still, the conventional readings deserve space. Distance, glare, atmospheric effects, misidentification, and imperfect memory can all distort an event that happens fast and high above the sea. A balloon or sensor artifact can look stranger than expected in the right conditions. And in military aviation, even experienced crews can face moments where speed, angle, and stress complicate what the eye thinks it saw. Yet those explanations do not fully settle the feeling left by the Roosevelt reports. The object's apparent steadiness, then sudden departure, keeps pulling the mind back towards something more deliberate. What remains unresolved is not only what the craft was, but how much of the encounter was captured, preserved, and later made public. In cases like this, missing context can be as haunting as missing evidence. The Roosevelt UAP reports endure because they sit at the edge of what military aviation can explain cleanly. They invite the possibility that something advanced, unfamiliar, or simply misunderstood crossed that airspace. Maybe the answer is hidden in a technical detail, a forgotten recording, or a later clarification that never reached the public. Or maybe the central fact is simpler. trained eyes saw something that still does not sit comfortably in the ordinary world. For now, the case remains open in the most compelling way. Not as proof of one final theory, but as a reminder that the sky can still hold encounters we do not know how to name. And that is why the Roosevelt reports continue to matter. They leave us with disciplined witnesses, incomplete answers, and the uneasy sense that the story is larger than the label we give it. In the end, the mystery is not only whether the object was extraordinary, it is whether modern military skies may still contain things that reveal themselves briefly, then vanish before certainty can catch up. That possibility is what keeps these Navy reports alive in the public imagination. Not certainty, but the stubborn sense that something real passed through the frame and left more questions than answers. For investigators, the challenge is to separate what was seen from what can be proven. For everyone else, the challenge is simpler and stranger, to look up and admit that some encounters still refuse to settle. The Roosevelt case does not close the book on UAPs. It opens a door onto the larger question that keeps returning across the Navy record. What exactly is sharing the sky with us? Even now, that question remains suspended over the Pacific, elegant and unresolved. And perhaps that is why the Roosevelt reports still feel less like a footnote than a warning that the unknown is not finished with us. The most enduring mysteries are often the ones that arrive quietly, in daylight, under disciplined observation. Roosevelt belongs to that rare category, where the ordinary setting only deepens the strangeness. Long after the flight is over, the memory remains. A smooth white object, impossible speed, and a crew trying to make sense of what they had just witnessed. That image has not gone away. If the reports were mistaken, they were mistaken in a way that still deserves serious attention. If they were accurate, then the Roosevelt encounter points toward a reality far more complicated than routine aviation can explain.